Hi, I'm Liz Bowen. I'm a realtor and the owner of Red Bow Realty here in beautiful Colorado Springs. And I want to talk to you today about 3 things that help you determine if you are financially prepared to buy a home. And those 3 things are earnest money, your loan closing costs, and then finally a down payment. So we're going to start with the first one, and that's earnest money. Now, earnest money is collected right when you go under contract. So you need to make sure you have that money available when you are starting to go shopping for homes. And in Colorado Springs, that dollar amount is usually about 1% of your purchase price. So if you're looking at like $350,000 homes, you should have $3,500 ready to go for earnest money. Now, the good thing about earnest money for the buyer is that it's not a fee. Okay, it's not a charge. You put that money as a deposit at the beginning of the transaction and it gets credited back to you at the closing table, which means that would be money that you don't have to also bring later. Now, the reason that we use earnest money though, basically does 2 things for the seller. Now, the first thing it does for the seller is it gives the seller some peace of mind. Okay, they're basically promising to sell their home to you and they're hoping that you can afford it. So really earnest money says, yep, I've got some money. I'm financially prepared, right, to buy this home. But the second thing that earnest money does is that it is recourse for the seller in the event that you, the buyer, don't do what you're supposed to do. Now, what does that look like? There are many times in your purchase contract and during your transaction when things are going to happen and you, the buyer, are protected, right? That you can get out of the contract as long as you give written notice. And if you do that by a certain date, you'll get your earnest money back. But if you don't provide written notice by a certain date and still say, I can't buy the house, now your earnest money is in jeopardy. You would forfeit your earnest money deposit to the seller, and it basically compensates the seller for having the house off the market for a certain amount of time. So that's really earnest money, 1% of your purchase price. It's got to be ready to go. It is at the beginning of the transaction. It's going to be deposited into what we call a trust account or an escrow account. Usually those are maintained by either a real estate brokerage firm or a title company. So the money has to be good, okay? And it shows 2 things clearly to the seller, that you have money and that if you don't do what you said you're going to do, then the seller can use that earnest money to basically pay himself back for the time and effort and pain and heartache of having your transaction fall through. All right, the second thing that you need to be aware of to make sure that you're financially ready to buy a home is going to be your down payment. Let's talk about that. So there are a lot of people, surprisingly so, who still believe you have to have 20% of your purchase price for a down payment on a home, and that simply is not the case. There are many other kinds of loans that you could qualify for. So you want to talk to a really good lender, and if you need any kind of references, then feel free to reach out to me. But you want to work with a great lender who is ready to provide you with information about a variety of different kinds of loans. So let's start off by talking about one that is near and dear to our active military and veterans, and that is a VA loan. Now, a VA loan is absolutely amazing in that if you qualify, there is a 0 down payment requirement. Unbelievable. That means there's no down payment at all if you qualify for a VA loan. Now, for all of my military folks, just because you're using a VA loan doesn't mean that you wouldn't have to put an earnest money deposit down. You still would, but you don't have to also budget for a down payment. Now, if you're not in the military, you still might qualify for what we call an FHA loan. And FHA loans, again, a great loan product because the down payment requirement is only 3.5%. That's right, 3.5%, not 20. So that makes home ownership so much more affordable for those folks who qualify for an FHA loan. There are many other types of loans, many conventional loan products that may require 5% 10%, 15%. If you're actually purchasing as an investment, that's where you might see something as high as 15, 20% down. But for the most part, many loan programs require much less than 20% down. And I'm really hoping that that kind of sets you at ease and makes you feel like, well, maybe I really can financially afford a home. But I do want you to keep in mind that if you are doing an FHA loan, 3.5% down. If you're going conventional financing, 5, 10, there's so many different conventional loan products that you really want to talk to a great loan officer and find out what you qualify for and what's best for you. Okay, so we've talked about earnest money and we've talked about down payment. The third thing that many people forget or they're not even aware of are loan closing costs and prepaids. So, I joke around, but I tell all of my buyers, hey, nothing's for free. Right? You are applying for a loan, you're working with a loan officer, you're working with underwriters and loan assistants, and quite honestly, even though you're borrowing money and you're promising to pay it back with interest, those folks deserve to get paid for the work that they're providing. And so it costs money to get a loan. It's just that simple. And those loan closing costs and prepaids, while they also pay for the loan, they also pay for things that are required as part of the loan process. For example, your home will need to get appraised. And so the price of an appraisal is usually included in your loan closing costs and prepaids. A lot of times you'll have to get a credit check run, right? The lender wants to check your credit, and getting a credit report run costs money too. That will be part of your loan closing costs and prepaids. But let me talk to you a little bit about the prepaids part of the loan closing costs and prepaids. So when we talk about prepaids, what we're saying is that the lender is going to want to capture or collect some money up front to start what we call some escrow accounts. And these escrow accounts are for taxes and homeowners insurance. Okay, and so for the most part, they're going to collect these prepaid dollar amounts from you, and they're going to start these little accounts for you so that when your tax bill comes due, the beginning of the year, January, is when that lien goes on your property. And when your homeowner's insurance is due, then there's money ready to go so the lender can pay those bills for you. Now, also, you have to have a homeowner's or hazard insurance policy paid for at the time that you take ownership of the property, so the lender feels confident, right, that if something were to happen to this amazing investment that they're making on your behalf, because consider that on a $350,000 home, if you're going with an FHA loan and you're putting 3.5% down, if something happened and, God forbid the house burns down, then who's stuck, right, with having to, having this huge loss? Well, if you have homeowners insurance, then we can make a claim against your homeowners insurance, and that way the lender's protected. So the lender always wants you to have active homeowners insurance on the house to protect their investment, right? As much as it helps you protect your investment. So you'll need to have a full year's homeowners insurance policy paid for up front, plus a couple of months worth of money to make sure that when the bill comes due next year, there's enough to cover that payment. And then of course the taxes that we were talking about, right? So these accounts, these escrow accounts are called prepaids. Now, all of the prepaids and all of the loan closing costs together, depending on the type of loan that you're getting, could be anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000. Now, what's important for you, of course, is that you're talking again with a great lender who's going to clarify and explain all this for you. But if you only thought that you needed to worry about an earnest money deposit and a down payment, I want to make sure you have this $6,000, $7,000 additional expense on your radar, okay? Loan closing costs are paid for at the time of closing. That's when your down payment is also due. But remember that earnest money deposit you made at the beginning of the transaction is going to get credited back to you at the closing. So that should kind of reduce the amount of money that you're going to have to come up with a little bit. All right, so even though you may be a VA buyer, an active member of the military or a veteran using your VA eligibility, you still need to keep in mind that even if your down payment is zero, you're still going to have loan closing costs and you're still going to have an earnest money deposit to manage. Additionally, if you are not using a VA loan and you are maybe newly married and looking to make your first home purchase, an FHA loan would be something I would highly encourage you to consider. You'll need to factor in your earnest money deposit, probably maybe 3.5% down payment, and then a good $6,000 for your loan closing costs and prepaids. Now, for you guys, the first-time home buyers, newly married, first of all, congratulations. But also, I want you to know that there are many first-time home buyer programs that assist you with your down payment. So even if you were qualifying for a great FHA loan that only required 3.5% down, you might actually be able to get some assistance with that 3.5% down, and it would mean that you wouldn't have to come up with quite as much money for your down payment. So again, talk to a lender, make sure you're exploring all of your options, talk about the fact, whether you have purchased a home before, because even if you have, in some situations, you may still qualify for some kind of first-time home buyer down payment assistance. So I hope that you have found this video to be really interesting, and it shines some light on exactly what it takes financially to be prepared to buy a home here in Colorado Springs. Again, my name is Liz Bowen, and what's important to you is important to me.